Hello, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to EFA106 on this Tuesday, July 7th. It's a hot one. Absolutely love it, but it's a hot one. Love the heat. Love what it does to my body. I love the training. I love training in the heat. The pad behind me is where I do my cross rope, and I'm starting into the body type trainings now. Using my body more so. Call it CrossFit, college, which you want, but those type of training. Gentleman in Ottawa that I interviewed in the past, Greg, he does a lot of that kind of stuff with his students and the NFLers, the CFLers, all the sports athletes, and the members of the dojo. And some great workouts are to be had when you have a proper coaching, proper training, and proper everything. Mind-boggling. But I was talking about the heat a moment ago because the heat is, although I'm sitting in the heat right now, I'm letting myself melt, sweat. By the time I'll probably finish this 5, 6, 7 minutes, I'll probably have sweat coming down my face. But it's not as much sweat and heat that families are facing and families are dealing with across the world, globally. And I say this globally because it's the same message. I was on the phone this morning with a person from California. I believe she was in California. And I've had conversations with business individuals throughout the world. And when you talk to them, and I said this on previous EFAs, it's the same conversation. Just replace, I'm in Ottawa, Canada, replace the word Ottawa and put in their city the same conversations. And I want to get to this because I find it interesting how coordinated we are. Don't you guys ask yourself that question? Listen to News Talk Radio in Ottawa, listen to News Talk Radio in Montreal, listen to News Talk Radio in Toronto. Now go out of your country, listen to News Talk Radio Idaho, listen to News Talk Radio Miami Beach, Florida, like Paris, France, en Belgium, like la Belge. You listen to in Africa, it doesn't matter. It's the same messages, same communication, talking about the same thing, the mandatory mask, and all the way through, right? And I just find it very interesting how globally synchronized we are in the communication. And further to that, the other stuff of enforcement, right? The mandatory mask and all these types of policies and procedures seem to be following the same path together. I wrote this thing this morning. I was thinking about it. And I'm going to read it first. And it's a draft. It's a draft of what I wrote. The global system has permanently altered the mindsets of humanity. Divided and diversified mindsets that are now filled with either fear, apprehension, doubt, mistrust, and so forth, while others have discovered a freedom of understanding to distance themselves from the system. And I heard this phrase the other day, being cemented into their personalities. And I was listening with a Dyslexia podcast, and that phrase was used, being cemented into their personalities. That's what you've done. You, the system, have cemented all these things into the personality and the fabric of our societies now. That apprehension. They're talking about, like, even when the reason why they're doing the mandatory mask is they're trying to force people back outside and people to start working together. Like, because there's a apprehension and a fear to socialize. So we've created a psychology. So it's a good thing about the mask. The mask is a good thing because it'll help people congregate again, get them together again, go back to work, right? Get off the system, go back to work, go back to the beaches, go back to the parks, go back to the gym, go back to the restaurants, go back, just go back. So those face coverings might be a good thing, actually, right? Cover the whole face if that's what you guys want. So that might be a good thing, because the other thing I posted yesterday and I talked about is now that we're going mandatory facial coverings, right? If the masks are safe, remember for months, like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, the medical experts are saying don't wear the mask. But now they're telling us to wear the mask, and now they're telling us to wear the mask mandatorily. And after the mandatorily, like I told you, the fines will be coming, right? The tickets will be coming. So if we're covering our face mandatorily, this morning, I won't mention names, like I was dealing with a medical appointment for my daughter at one of her appointments, and the professional, truly professional, they're ready for surgery. Like, they had the face shield, they had the mask, like the doubles, right? And like ready for surgery. And if society is dressing like that, because it's mandatory now, so and I've mentioned this, the employers, the companies, the business owners, they will go above and beyond the minimum requirements to ensure that they comply with everything so they can stay alive and they can stay fruitful and they can keep their family money coming in. Right, so the business owners, the restaurateurs, the spas, the salons, the service industry, anybody in a public place, a gym, a spa, they want to bring people in, they will go above and beyond. And I've always said this on previous EFAs, hence why this morning the mask and the face shield, right? So, and I'm looking at that, and if that makes everybody safe, then therefore remove all the other restrictions that I talked about yesterday. Therefore, restaurants and gyms and spa, all those people should be able to go into full operation, full pre-COVID-19 ways of life and running their business efficiently, not being told how to run it inefficiently, correct? Businesses are being told how to run the business by people that have never ran a business, all right? And they know how inefficiently they're running it right now. And also, those that have jacked up their prices just to get closer to what they used to make are being criticized for doing so, right? So, because of all these restrictions. So, if we're going to the face shields and going to the face covering, mandatory in all public places, therefore remove all other restrictions. If you go back to the global system that I've talked about a moment ago, and if you've altered the mindsets of humanity, which you have altered the mindsets of humanity, therefore reverse that, stop it at least in its track, and pull it back so that people could start intermingling again, going back to the gym again, going back to restaurants, going out. You're gonna psychologically help people. You're gonna financially help businesses. You're gonna help society and fabrics of society. You were already created prior to COVID-19 a generation of youth that are afraid to go outside because they're sucked into the brainwashing of the screens and the televisions and the games and all that sickening stuff. They hence the obesity, hence the diabetes in children. Alcoholic liver disease in children, numb with the processed food and stay inside and don't do exercise and stay in front of a screen, right? You already had that pre-COVID-19. And now you've created a psychological impact on everybody in humanity. What have you created? What have you created? How many people are going to be on a system now with obesity? If we had non-alcoholic liver disease in children prior to COVID-19, what are we going to have after COVID-19 going forward and all these? Be afraid of everything. Don't go outside, stay inside. No gyms, no exercise, like all that stuff. What have you created? Don't you find it interesting how we can coordinate? Like the entire globe is coordinated. We are one. We are one. But you can't coordinate education on not eating processed food all the time. You can't coordinate the damages of sugar, the impact on your body. You can't coordinate all doctors giving out the exact same good, healthy, nutritional fact to every single human being on earth and how to live 100 years old healthy without needing the system. You can't coordinate that. You can't coordinate the education on taxes and fees and how to stay out of debt and how to stay out of credit card debts and line to credit debts. You can't coordinate that globally and teach that. You can't teach on how to provide. You can't teach on how to teach people how to go get fish and catch fish and serve fish, instead of wait for the fish to come to them. There's so many things that you can coordinate, but yet you don't, or at least you have the image that you haven't because it hasn't happened yet. But yet you've coordinated this effort, and look, under 6 months, what you've done, what you were able to coordinate in the world. You know, I'm counting the month and the week that of like days, weeks, month. I can't say year. I'm going to say days, week, month, and those facial coverings. Remember all the touch screens at all these fast food places, how the fecal matters and the bacteria and they find sperm, they find snot juice, they find everything on those screens, on door handles, on the candies inside of little bowls. I can keep going on, right? I can't wait for the facial coverings to be tested and how much bacteria, It's like the shields are probably a lot better, right? The shields or the hand washable ones. You can rinse it, squeeze them out. You know what I mean? Those that are making masks out there, the reusable, rewashable ones. Those are the ones that they can wash right on the spot if they get touched and dirty. Because those masks, those face coverings, can't wait to hear and see the data on what those face coverings are holding in. What are they trapping into their fibers that you are continuously breathing in? And on this 40-degree humidex day, and those that are outside right now and have to wear facial coverings because you're mandated to do so, and even you're working 8, 12, 16 hours in this heat, your water breaks, the heat breaks, the shade breaks, take them all. You have to breathe. Trust me on that. The amount of deaths and accidents that are investigated from those that lose consciousness based on all these external environmental factors, take your breaks, like go to your shade, take your fluids, because these mandatory face coverings, you will pass out. And there will be an increase in injuries, and there will be an increase of those losing consciousness. So pause, breathe, sit in the shade, drink. Look at me. How long has this podcast been? And look at the drips off my forehead right now. Now imagine if I'm carrying a lumber, I'm swinging a hammer, I'm carrying my utilities, I'm delivering parcels, I'm training people outside, I'm working in any public place on any grounds of public places. They can go above and beyond. Remember that. They can, and they say, well, if you have certain conditions and all that, there's so much, what's the word, that the shame, or you don't care, or it's not about you, it's about others. There's that shame out there. There's that shame on those that are not wearing a mask. And a lot of people are sensing that, and a lot of people are talking about it. There's a shame that has been created, right? So for not wearing a mask. So now that it's mandatory, and those that do have respiratory issues, don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. Get a face shield. Get something if you have to work in conjunction with, get a face shield. But don't be afraid and ashamed to say it, right? I suffer from, right? And those that are working in the heat and that, please get a face shield. do not cover your breathing way, because you will pass out. Mark my word. Jean-Guy Bourguignon, EFA 106.